Hey everyone, welcome back to another recap podcast from SNXweave, where we give quick weekly recaps of news and important updates from the previous week from the Spartan Council, core contributors, and Ambassador Council. Let's get started. For a quick base update, there's currently about $40 million in daily perps volume, $1.25 billion in cumulative volume, $22 million in LP-backed collateral, and over 50,000 SNX has been bought back and burned. The goal is still to get to $100 million in daily volume and sustain over $20 million in LP-backed collateral. So incentives are continuing, and yield-bearing LP collateral options are also being added to help reach these milestones. The BTC and ETH OI caps are at $15 million. As previously mentioned, OI caps are limited by available LP collateral and are currently the highest they can be without additional LPs. Though the capacity is there, the utilization of available OI by traders is relatively low. Next, the migration from L1 SNX to V3 is expected to be ready within the next couple of weeks. The SIP for the legacy market is ready for release, and the synth deprecation SIP is reaching a steady state. The testnet release for the launch and scaling of L1 perps is also coming soon, and the SIP for this is being finalized for a presentation. As for the launch and scale up on Arbitrum, the LP deposit and incentives are set to begin in June. The SIP for this deployment is being updated with bigger LP caps and a renamed stablecoin. Depending on how fast the LP scales, the hope is that a perps market could be launched on Arbitrum within a couple of weeks of the deployment. The initial SIP presentation for this lists DAI as an available collateral type for LPs, but Millie suggested removing it since it only detracts from the other collateral types and isn't particularly popular on Arbitrum. He will be writing the SCCP to remove it. Duck also called out the fact that there's currently no written plan for how Arbitrum fees will be distributed. By default, they would all go to the LPs, but one of the suggestions for the SNX staker portion was to send that portion of the fee to base to be included in the buyback and burn that's happening now. There will also be a SIP drafted to lay out the process for fee sharing and distribution. Next, the SIP to bring elections on-chain is in audit and is ready for a presentation. Some core contributors are working on cross-chain messages using Wormhole for the implementation of the modular cross-chain election system SIP, and the testing phase will start this week. There's also a SIP presentation last week, SIP 384 for the Synthetics OP SNX app chain. Presented by Jackson, this SIP proposes creating an app chain for Synthetics called Synth Superchain with Optimism, the Layer 2 rollup chosen as the base for Synthetics Superchain. The proposal would make SynthChain the home of the central Synthetics system, with other chains becoming satellites, and it would use cross-chain messaging for synchronization. Many Synthetics integrators are already running on Optimism mainnet, and since this SynthChain would be built on the OP stack, the transition would be fairly painless. Lyra has already done this since January, and they've been able to significantly improve user experience by offering gasless transactions, liquidity deposits from other chains, and more. Jackson explained that this new app chain would also bring the product closer to what centralized exchanges are able to offer. Millie's concerned that it might be a bit early and the technology might not be ready for prime time yet. He thinks a better approach would be to let all the kinks work themselves out over the next couple of years, then start exploring ways it could be beneficial to the protocol, essentially putting together what emerge as the best solutions. Gene and Duck chimed in, agreeing that it should be explored long-term, but the technology is likely not in a place where it would be useful for Synthetics right now. Cav brought up that while he doesn't see much benefit in moving to an SNX chain for trading, having it as a single governance hub where all the fees from different deployments are collected, and one that is also possibly home to SNX staking, might be valuable. In Ambassador updates, the team has been discussing Optimism's retro funding round 4, which has officially begun. The Council has begun their campaign of reaching out to SNX ecosystem protocols to make sure they understand the criteria and application process. During this round, the Optimism Collective is allocating 10 million OP to reward Superchain builders. The collective decided to dedicate this round specifically to on-chain builders in order to incentivize contributor growth and network activity, be more inclusive towards long-tail contributors, and build upon the significant growth in developer activities since round 3. Some key dates related to round 4 that the ambassadors wanted everyone to be on the lookout for are the sign-up start date, which is May 23rd, the sign-up end date, which is June 6th, the application review process, which will take place between June 6th and June 18th, voting, which will run between June 23rd and July 8th, and the results and grant delivery, which will be announced July 15th. The application for this round of retro funding is linked in our blog, as well as a list of eligibility criteria, which aim to strike a balance between broad inclusivity and sufficient requirements to allow for an operationally viable funding round. To read more, an Optimism article with full details regarding retro funding round 4, as well as a link to Optimism's grant calendar, can be found in our blog post. The ambassadors also shared an Optimism video call that Matt joined with other on-chain builders to discuss round 4, so that will be linked in the blog as well. And that's it for today's updates. Be sure to check out our weekly recap blog post, share this podcast link, and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear more about from SNXweave. Thanks for listening.